Welcome back to the SteadyTrade Podcast, everyone. Tim Bohen back with Matt McCall. Well, we survived the market apocalypse and actually very happy with the episode last week. If you didn't check it out, really the cliff notes of that episode were just relax, everybody. It's not the end of the world. And I think we published, I think we recorded on Monday or Tuesday, published on Wednesday. By Friday, we were all the way back from all the chaos of Monday. And, I'm not saying that to spike the football, but it's just like when that stuff happens, the best thing to do is just calm down, give it a few days and see if it is truly the apocalypse or not. And as of right now, again, market came all the way back from that. Now, I do have a question for Matt from a lot of that we'll get to. But then, all joking aside, as we're going live right now, I'm watching my breaking news feed. We're sending warships, we're sending submarines to the Middle East. There's talk of, Iran and Russia changing weapons, and it's like it's getting ugly. So hopefully it's not the real apocalypse, but we'll talk about, price of oil is up almost 3% today. So those are, when it comes to trading, when this stuff starts happening, we typically look at those oil and gas type stocks. So a lot to go over today. So how's it going, Matt?
Oh, going good. Yeah. I mean, last week was kind of nuts. It had the worst day of the year on Monday, and then the best day of the year on, I think it was Thursday. So you really had a little bit of both pickled in there. I guess it was Wednesday, the best day. No, Thursday, I take it back, of the year, all in 1 week. It's pretty rare to have that happen. So we had a bit of a, yo-yo, and it's crazy talking to people out and about. I'm here in Nicaragua, but a lot of expats, a lot of people in the market. You ask one person, Tim, stocks are great. My portfolio is doing great. You ask the next person, oh my God, what's going on with the market? Like human emotion is as roller coaster as the market is right now, as evidence in the VIX last week, which we talked about in last week's show, hitting a level I've not seen in years. So I got to tell you, I mean, at the end of the day, it's almost better to walk away for a week. If you just missed last week, you got to sit out a lot of craziness. And that's where I come to long-term investing. Somebody trying to time this right now, man, oh man, if you're not timing this correctly, you're actually getting hurt versus just holding.
Oh, exactly. Because again, if you, listen, if you sold everything last week, everything you sold is probably right back where you were holding it, so it's like, so that's why and again, that's why I'm proud of last week's episode is we basically, like I said, the cliff notes was just relax, give it a few days and see what happens. And, it played out where, by Thursday, Friday, we were right back, and basically all of those stocks that people were freaking about were all the way back to where they were.
One of my favorites is Taiwan Semi, as far as big semiconductor companies are concerned, big technology companies concerned, symbol TSM. And that fell on Monday down to $134 a share. Monday morning here, it's at $168, back to the best level in 3 weeks. So, I mean, you look at this and two lessons from this. One, when you see something like that, take advantage of it because there's probably not going to stay there very long, which it didn't. Number two is, as long-term investors, a lot of people use stop losses. And I'm not saying not to use them. And just real quick, a stop loss is a price below the current price that if the stock breaks it, it triggers typically a market order if you just have a normal stop loss in. So let's say, for example, you had Taiwan Semi, a stop loss at 140. You're thinking, oh, it's not going to break through there. It breaks through that. You're triggered, you're sold. A week later, it's up $27 from that level. That's why I try to avoid having people put in stop losses, Tim. I'd rather have what I call a mental stop loss.
Yep.
If it closes below 140, see, that's your level, just making up a number here. And, you can always sell the next day. You don't have to do it because the market makers will rush people out and swipe out when they have really kind of round levels too, or moving averages. They'll knock people out and come right back. You see it all the time. I'd love to get your view. I know short-term trading is a little different.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. Good job leading right into it because a lot of longtime viewers, people that know me, etc., might be shocked that I was nodding to that mental stop on what I call real stocks, longer-term holds. I totally agree. And the reason a lot of people might be shocked is, listen, in penny stocks, man, you have to honor your stops. I mean, again, like we got a stock today. Actually, I was going to talk a little bit about it. GNLN. So they had dropped a press release this morning. They're located in Boca Raton, Florida, which we all always know is really sketchy. But they actually make it's kind of a scary world we live in. They're making a fentanyl test strip for drinks. So it's kind of a depressing thing that there's a market need for this. But evidently, if you're out and about, they make this thing and you can make sure no one dropped any fentanyl in your test strip or in your drink. But the point I'm making is that stock was up 300% at one point. And listen, it's a sketchy Boca Raton pump and dump. It's probably going to go all the way back where it came from. So when you're day trading, especially very speculative stocks, stop losses will absolutely save your life. You have to honor them because so many of these stocks round trip. So that's why, again, I was glad you asked me because long-term holds, I totally agree because you'll get stopped, they'll run you, and then you'll have a scenario like TSM and it's all the way back above. So understand, viewers, completely different idea of just riding momentum in some, $2 stock that went to 10 today and having a concrete stop loss where you will not break it versus quality companies with real products, with great businesses, et cetera. And, I think of, I'm going to butcher the quote, but one of that Warren Buffett quote where he says, investors should welcome volatility because occasionally it gives you the opportunity to buy great companies at extremely low prices. And again, I butchered it, I paraphrased it, but that reminds me of something like TSM. Like those are opportunities in those sectors.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if I would have told people, a month ago when TSM is trading at an all-time high, hey, TSM is going to go from 192 down to 135. Would you buy it at 135? Most people would say, yes, take all my money. I would have said, take all my money. Unfortunately, I didn't buy any more there. We already have some in a newsletter recommended in Elite right now, but I didn't buy any more because I was busy writing a newsletter. So it kind of hurt my plan there, Tim. But I will tell you, if I was actually retired sitting in front of a computer, I definitely would have dove into it. It's one of my favorite companies. But that pattern that we saw on TSM on Monday was a pretty similar pattern on a lot of other stocks too. A lot of great long-term companies that, they got ahead of themselves in early July and then they have this kind of freak out on Monday. And man, you look back on hindsight's 2020, but when you have these freakouts, they're great buying opportunities. I mean, they really are. There's something you just can't ignore. And that's where people are like, well, how do people do so well in the market? How do these guys and these girls get so rich? They take advantage of situations like this when everybody's, fear screaming, they're buying. That's how you make money.
It's funny you mentioned that because, we talked about Bitcoin a few weeks ago and actually, I think it was this weekend, I saw a meme or maybe it was a week ago. And it was like this guy, he's looking at the price of Bitcoin at 60. And he's like, man, I wish I would have bought it at 50. And then down below is the pullback of Bitcoin to 50. And there's another guy there. And he's like, are you going to buy now? He's like, hell no, I'm not going to buy now. And it's like,
exactly.
It's like, wait a minute. You were watching it go up and wish I would. And now you have that opportunity and now you're scared and you don't. So it was just a great meme. Yeah.
I think for long term, we could do a whole show on kind of educationists at some point. But when it comes to long term, if you're looking at a stock like, let's say, a Taiwan Semi or NVIDIA or something that's done real well the last year or so, and you think, oh, well, I missed it. Set a price you like it at.
Yep.
If it's 190 and you say, oh, you know what? I look at the valuations and look at the expectations going forward. I think it's fairly valued at 160. It'd be okay to buy it there. Put a mental or put an alert in your phone, whatever. If it hits 160, you buy it. No questions asked. Because you said to yourself that it looks good there, unless the business model changes or something happens, of course. But that's out there. Just buy the damn thing. If you believe in a company at 190, things don't go straight up. It pulls back to 160. Why wouldn't you like it there?
Exactly.
Makes no sense.
And the nice thing is, again, for those of you that are maybe very new to this, I mean, you could just set those orders and, leave them GTC and just, you could have 100 orders in there just waiting to get filled, and you don't even necessarily have to watch every day. Sometimes something like Monday will happen and you'll get that email from your broker that, hey, 100 shares, 1,000 shares, whatever filled. And you're like, oh, I guess I just, I got at my price, that price that I've been waiting maybe days, weeks, or possibly months for. Yeah.
Yep. That's a great idea. Great idea.
So back to Monday. I wanted to ask your input. So a lot of, going back to last week, we come into Sunday night and, futures are tanking and more World War III, a week ago. And the news broke that, that Buffett had sold a ton of his Apple. Okay. Now for me, as a mostly short-term trader, I just kind of look at it like, and maybe oversimplified it. I'm just like, because this, I got asked last week for whatever reason. I got asked about this so many times, DMs, emails, on webinars, on YouTube, like constantly. And like my answer was, well, I'm like, he probably just booking profits. Okay. But I think that was mainly because I got asked it so much. That was one of the big reasons everyone was like freaking out on Monday, because they thought, oh, Buffett's dumping his Apple, it's the end of the world or something. So I just kind of want to hear your read on that over my very oversimplified idea of it's like, man, he's just booking profits.
No, I would agree with you. I think it's probably just a book on profits. He's been trimming a few of his positions over the last year or two. I mean, he's been trimming BYD, which is the EV maker over in China, which he was really early in on. It was his first, I think, big Chinese investment. He's got Berkshire Hathaway. I say I'm talking about Berkshire Hathaway. They have $277 billion in cash right now. I mean, wrap your head around that number. That's over $250 billion in cash. Maybe we deduce this down to profit taking, that he doesn't see any great opportunities right now. But for me, also have to keep in mind, what is he, 98, 99 years old? Like, is there something else going on here? Is he setting this up, raising cash for his successor? I think there's a lot of things we could look at. I think the Apple story last week, Tim, was more important and more kind of brought on by the individual investor because of what happened on Monday.
Okay.
If just Apple was down on Monday and the markets were fine, we probably would skim right over it.
Yep.
But the fact that it had to do with a lot of other things, like you said, things going on in the Middle East, et cetera, the carry trade, it made it really come to light as one of the catalysts that drove Monday's nonsense that went on. But $277 billion in cash, they better start doing something. Because I tell you what, if I'm a shareholder of Berkshire Hathaway, which I'm not, I'd be pissed. I'm paying you to do something with that money, and you can't tell me there's nothing out there you can do with $277 billion. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Again, and again, I'm not a Berkshire Hathaway shareholder either, but like, to the point is that, I send you my money so that you will, use your wisdom to invest it. And all you're doing is sitting in cash. It's like, well, I could do that. I could just leave it in my money market account. I send it to you to do something with it. So
exactly. Yeah. I can put it in a CD right now and get 5.5%, right? Sure. So it doesn't really matter. But anyway, what do we got? Do you want to talk about World War III a little? I think you brought up what's going on here today.
Yeah, I do want to touch on that because, again, everything's heating up, and actually literally, 30 minutes ago, I had a very solid alert on what's called INDO. Okay. It's this penny stock oil and gas company. It spiked about 50 cents a share, which is a $4 stock. Nice day trade. And I want to bring it up because mainly for, I want your read from a long-term perspective, but mainly for, the day traders out there. And there's some names I'll give you. We'll put them in the notes as well. INDO, IMPP, HUSA, TPET. And, these are these repeat names of stocks that always heat up when this kind of story starts, when oil starts going crazy and the Middle East heats up, et cetera. And then I also got some penny stocks that have ran actually back on October 7th. PRZO and HUBC were these Israeli cybersecurity and a drone play that absolutely went wild. So I kind of want those on everybody's radar. INDO is on a heck of a run for about 2 weeks now. But I guess my question for you from more of like a macro perspective is like, where do you see the price of oil going? Where do you think we go from here, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call because I try to, as you know, stay out of this political nonsense and geopolitical nonsense. In my opinion, I think what's going on in the Middle East can be averted, could have been averted. So I get frustrated even bringing it up, to be honest with you, Tim. It's just, I think what's going on over there, we have two parties that are both effed up and refuse to back down. And it could lead to World War III.
I've been anti-war since high school. Yeah.
I am too. And I feel the same way. And the fact that the United States is sending over, as you said, more ships, more Navy personnel and money pisses me off even more, because our tax system is effed up already. And we don't need to be spending more money. We're already in a big enough deficit that we're trying to fight somebody else's work because somebody's the big guy on the playground and we have to stick up for him. That's bullshit to me. So get that out of the way. But other than that, I don't know what's going to happen. I think you would want to have some positions in your portfolio to hedge against any further escalation. Being oil stocks, I think it's a great way to do it. I think nuclear energy stocks would be great, because I think you're going to, as oil prices go up, you'll see price of uranium and more demand for nuclear energy. So I think that's a nice one. Plus, I love nuclear energy long term. So you kind of get to play both sides.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a kind of a short and long term way to hedge it. I also think you look at the aerospace and defense companies. In particular, there's two out there in Europe that I really like. First one's Rheinmetall, and that's the Germany's largest aerospace and defense company. Trades here as an ADR is RNMBY. I'd recommended that a couple of years ago in my old newsletter. It's a big maker of munitions that all these countries are buying and giving to Ukraine, and of the big tanks that all these countries are buying and giving to Ukraine. And they're right there in Germany. They're actually expanding. They're looking to open a plant in Ukraine. It's crazy enough. And then BAE Systems, which maybe you may have heard of, it's a $50 billion company, largest aerospace defense in Europe, based in UK. Not as much growth. It's high single-digit growth versus growth for Rheinmetall between 20 and 30% on both top and bottom line going next couple of years. And that's huge for a $25 billion company. So these are two stocks that I like either way. And you know what happened the last couple of years, Tim, is everybody's been supplying Ukraine, not everybody, Western Hemisphere countries, Ukraine with munitions and other stuff that now everybody's stockpile in their home country has gotten to levels not seen in decades. So they have to build back their inventory. So Correct. You're going to see, of course, it's almost like every year. Last year, the most ever spent on aerospace or on defense. It's only going to continue to increase, probably mid-single digits, which is high. It's a big number. So I think these companies either way, but if something happens, they obviously go up, in my opinion.
Sure. Because then you get, especially if like things really head south, then you get the guy, what I would call like the fundamental idea. The fundamental idea is that they're going to have to build more stuff, but then you also get the momentum crowd of people that rush into these stocks because they see what's happening. So it's like you get that kind of two-pronged push on these stocks, because it's not just the long-term investors that are looking at some earnings statement a year from now. It's also the momentum guys that start piling in and start pushing them around too.
Yeah, and there's also, there's small cap companies you look at too in the same space, in aerospace defense. There's always small drone companies. There's always, you can also drill down, because I think if something big were to happen, and let's hope it does not, but I'm sure your team would be initially looking right at some of these defense companies, because I'm sure they would explode.
Those two names I mentioned, PRZO. So if you actually, for homework, you guys, you could go back to October 7th and look at those charts. Like, it's kind of interesting with PRZO because, I love a good conspiracy theory, but PRZO actually the Friday before October 7th, they no press release, nothing going on, just this little drone play, okay? And that stock went crazy on Friday. Like we just thought it was just like a pump or something, and we were trading it and we were all over it. And then all of a sudden come Monday, it went absolutely bananas. So that's where always like the conspiracy theory is like, hey, did someone know something was coming? And HUBC, they're a cybersecurity play, but also Israeli based. That started running on Friday too, and these are all, $1 and $2 stocks. So it's always like you wonder, like, did somebody know something or what? But when these things heat up, those two always seem to start running. So,
yeah, it's, obviously somebody knows something, right? Because somebody had to plan this damn thing that happened on October 7th. So somebody planned it and they need money too. And they're not dummies. A lot of these people, I hate to say it, just because they're terrorists doesn't mean they're not smart. And they're probably getting behind this, and it's crazy that they can do this, but I'm sure there's probably somebody in there. If I had to place a bet, somebody who knew something and bought ahead of time for sure.
And that's one of the funny things. Like you think of like the wild, wild west of penny stocks. So HUGE, okay, huge is the ticker. All right. So anyway, it went like 300% on Friday, and they make, I think it's a pill to like sober you up. Okay. Basically that's the idea. A lot of people probably remember SHOT, safety shot. Okay, they actually make like this shot that's supposed to sober you up. Okay, that was a big runner back in the spring. But it's funny the way they play. I call it playing the game. So shot had like nothing going on for months. Huge runs on Friday. Guess who has a press release, bragging about their amazing alcohol shot today? Shot. Okay, so it's like what's neat about these stocks, and that's one of the reasons I love these penny stocks, is once you figure out the game. Again, most of all these CEOs and all these companies, they're ex-felons, they're on the run from Interpol and stuff. Like it's very simple to figure this stuff out. So a lot of people, when they're like, how do you know these repeat runners and know what pops off? The more you track it, you'll see these same names come back and they'll do the same cycle. They'll basically ride these waves. And that's why we always only day trade them, because they'll run up and then they fade back and then they just repeat that cycle over and over and over again. So
it's crazy. Yeah, you can see it in charts and all the stocks I'm talking about too. You can see it right there.
Like you can literally see it. And then you can go back and you're like, I bet there was a PR on that day. And you go back and sure enough, there was. So a couple other things, kind of talking about, going back to what you see going forward, et cetera, like what's on your radar kind of right now for as we move forward. I mean, we gave our watch list over the last couple of weeks, but anything new on your radar?
Right now I'm going through, I wrote something up this week and it came out on Monday. And I was kind of just looking at how stocks performed from the July 10th high, the NASDAQ 100 through the weekend, which is 1 month. And it was pretty amazing. In that time frame, the NASDAQ coming into Monday was down 10.5%. But there was quite a few sectors that were up big. Home builders, REITs were both up big. Regional banks were up big. Utilities were up big. And a lot of those had to do with like REITs and utilities, obviously, as interest rates came down, because as we're preparing for the Fed to lower interest rates, as they came down, it makes dividends more attractive. So that's normal to see that. But the home builders, obviously, lower mortgage rates makes sense. But the home builders, man, they have been on fire in the last month. I mean, on fire. They pulled back in the last couple of weeks, but they hit an all-time high just about 7 or 8 days ago. So, and they pulled back to a nice support. So I think there's a lot of upside potential there. And then the other thing, Tim, is we've talked about this, that when the Fed does start lowering rates, which at the latest will be September, small caps should do well. And that trade was on, right? That trade was on early July up through the end of July. And then we had the craziness happen in the last week and a half. And that really crushed the small caps. So the IWM, which is the Russell 2000 index, hit about 227, 228 about a week and a half ago, came down to 197. Now we're at 204. So again, it's down about 10% from that high, give or take, a little less. I think it's a great time to leg into some small caps here. It doesn't have to be an ETF, but just some small caps that have pulled back, that if you like them and they ran to highs, you're like, oh, shit, I missed it. They're pulling back 10%. This might be your last chance to get them for a while.
Yeah. And we've started to see that in speculative land as well. Like some, again, GNLN, again, that was that, fentanyl test strip. A lot of these lower float, again, day tradable only stocks are really popping off. We're seeing, way bigger moves and multi-day moves, which that's what we like to see, especially when things start heating up. Because you go back a few months ago, I call it one and done, where they spike and they fade late day, but now we're seeing a shift, which is much more trader friendly, where they have sustained all day moves. Even GNLN, as we were recording at 1:30, that thing is still up 235% and trending sideways, very heavily shorted. Like that thing could make a secondary run. And a few months ago, we weren't seeing that. So things are definitely heating, even though the indexes aren't seeing it. like when it comes to the velocity of the moves and the quantity of moves in small cap land, there's a different feel right now for sure.
Yeah, I think that's important that you mentioned that, because you are seeing more. You're starting to see even more like big firms come out and say small caps are the place to be now. And I like to do the opposite of big firms, but it's tough to argue with what they're saying right now. Like, and this is the beginning. And that's the other thing. I think, the move that we've seen in small caps over the last 2 months or so is just the beginning. Like when this trend truly shifts from big to small, it's going to last a while. It's not just going to be this short term. It's going to last quite a bit. So I'm excited to continue to see where this goes. And I think we have to take advantage of pullbacks, because the thing is, Tim, it doesn't go straight up. We all know that, right? So we need to look at stocks that we want to own. And when they pull back 5, 10, 15% from a high, buy them. It's like when your favorite whiskey goes on sale, buy it. Like, what are you waiting for? You're going to drink more at some point,
So last topic, we'll kind of wrap up here. So, it's kind of the biggest, other than World War III, it's probably the second biggest story of the day. And I think it is market related. So I'm sure you saw Elon's bringing Trump on. Okay. And, basically this is quote unquote Trump's return to X, because they're actually going to host it on Trump's account, I guess. But what do you think about the biggest story of the day? Elon and Donald Trump sitting down together, two of the probably maybe the most polarizing figures. Like it's kind of funny, both of them. You either love them or hate them. There seems to be no in between on those two guys. So what do you think? And are you going to watch it? I guess.
Yeah, I will absolutely watch it. I think it's going to be interesting. I think if you're running for president of the United States, or if you're a vice president running along with a president, you should be doing a lot of interviews, and you should be, if you're asked to speak somewhere, go, because we need to know more about you. As much as we want to know about you, we should be able to ask you any question we want to know. If we think you're
unless the plan's the exact opposite.
I know, but exactly. I'm getting to that in a second. My point is, if you want the privilege of being the president of the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, you have to work for it. You have to tell us everything you're going to do. You have to peel off the onion and show us all the ugly layers, because nobody's perfect. Show us everything that we ask for. So I like that they're doing this. I really, really do. And I hope that Elon, I don't know if he's moderating, I didn't see that, ask good questions. Whoever moderates, ask good questions. And if it makes Trump feel uncomfortable, awesome. Because the other candidate, Harris, is hiding somewhere, and she's not doing anything. And again, I'm not picking sides. I know you like Trump. I'm just saying, I want to know. I wrote about Trump and the markets moving hand in hand last week. Tim, I couldn't write about Kamala because I don't know what the hell she stands for when it comes to the economy, because she hasn't said anything. Yep. So how could I vote for her?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, that's the whole point. Like you even go to the webpage, there's like no policy even there.
Nothing.
It's like, and listen, we all know they never do what they say they will do, or they do some of it. But at least give me something. At least tell me.
Play the game, right? At least play the damn game.
So anyway, thanks again. I heard you're back in Nicaragua, right?
I am back in Nicaragua. I'll be here back home.
So you're going to be in the same spot for a while.
I'll be here for a while. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So
you know where to find me.
So guys, a lot of the topics that we brought up today were kind of like, kind of reviewing, and we're also from comments. So one thing we've been asked to do, and we would love to do because it's fun, be sure to, whether it be in the comments, or we might even put up a link for like the mailbag, like as I mentioned way back in the very first episode, and several times after that, like we really want to, build this podcast into something that you guys love and grow and evolve it. So give us some questions, like stuff you want our viewpoints on, or maybe stuff you disagree with us on, or agree, or whatever. But, as of right now, we were kind of like teeing up, kind of doing like that mailbag episode to kind of give a little bit of feedback to you guys that have been, really helping this thing grow. Every episode getting a little bit bigger. We're kind of getting off the ground now. So we really appreciate that. So that being said, Matt, have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the SteadyTrade Podcast.